0 victims. Pomage Inc. State Museum Research, 112. So Bible quoted, 101,370. Final count in excess of 200,000 with 140,000 from Lublin, and 25,000 Jews from Lviv alone per contemporary historians, 113. Treblinka quoted, 713,555. Overall minimum of 800,000 900,000 at Camp 2. And 20,000 at Camp I, 114. The Hawthorne Telegram lists the number of arrivals to the Action Reinhard camps through 1942, 1,274,166. The Hawthorne Telegram lists the number of arrivals to the Reinhard camps through 1942 as 1,274,166 Jews based on Reichsbahn records. The last train to be sent to Treblinka extermination camp left by a listed ghetto on the 18th of August, 1943. All prisoners were murdered in gas chambers, after which the camp closed down per Globoknik's Directive. 71. Of the more than 245,000 Jews who passed through the Lodz ghetto, 115. The last 68,000 inmates. By then the largest final gathering of Jews in all of German-occupied Europe, had been murdered by the Nazis after the 7th of August, 1944. They were told to prepare for resettlement. Instead, over the next 23 days they were sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau by train at the rate of 2,500 per day. 63. Romania. Pulling dead Jews from the death train of IAI pogrom. July 1941, 116. Sulfurate Romaine, Romanian railways, were involved in the transport of Jewish and Romani people to concentration camps in Romanian Old Kingdom, Bessarabia, Northern Bukovina, and Transnistria. 116. In a notable example, after the ESC pogrom events, Jews were forcibly loaded on 2 freight cars with planks hammered in place over the windows and traveled for 7 days in unimaginable conditions. 116. Many died and were gravely affected by lack of air, blistering heat, lack of water, food or medical attention. These veritable death trains arrived to their destinations Podula and Korai with only 1/5 of their passengers alive. 116, 117, 118. No official apology was released yet by Sulfurate Romaine for their role in the Holocaust in Romania, Slovakia. On the 9th of September, 1941, the Parliament of the Slovak state ratified the Jewish Codex, a series of laws and regulations that stripped Slovakia's 89,000 Jews of their civil rights and means of economic survival. The ruling Slovak People's Party paid 500 Reichsmarks per expelled Jew, in exchange for a promise that their deportees would never return to Slovakia. Except for Croatia, Slovakia was the only Axis ally to pay for the deportation of its own Jewish population. Most of the Jewish population perished in 2 waves of deportations. The first, in 1942, took away 2/3 of the Slovak Jews. The second wave after the Slovak national uprising in 1944 claimed another 13,500 victims, 10,000 of whom did not return. 119, 120, 121. Switzerland. Entrance to the Gotthard Tunnel. Switzerland was not invaded because its mountain bridges and tunnels between Germany and Italy were too vital for them to go into war. 122. While the Swiss banks provided necessary access to international markets by dealing in pilfered gold. 123. Most war supplies to Italy were shipped through the Austrian Brenner Pass. 124. There exists substantial evidence that these shipments included Italian forced labor workers and trainloads of Jews in 1944 during German occupation of northern Italy. 125, when a German train passed through Switzerland every 10 minutes. The need for the tunnel was complicated by the British Royal Air Force having bombed and disrupted services through the Brenner Pass, as well as a heavy snowfall in the winter of 1944-45. 89 of 43 trains that could be tracked down by the 1996 Bergier Commission. 39 went via Austria, Brenner, Tarvisio, 1 via France, Ventimiglia-Nice. The Commission could not find any evidence that the other 3 passed through Switzerland. It is possible that the train could have been carrying dissidents back from concentration camps. Started in 1944, some repatriation trains went through Switzerland officially, organized by the Red Cross. 122, 126, aftermath. After the Soviet army began to advance into German-occupied Europe and the Allies landed in Normandy in June 1944, the number of trains and transported persons began to vary greatly. By November 1944, with closure of Birkenau, the death trains had ceased. As the Soviet and Allied armies made their final pushes, the Nazis transported some of the concentration camp survivors either to other camps located inside collapsing Third Reich, or to the border areas where they believed they could negotiate the release of captured German prisoners of war in return for the exchange Jews or those that were born outside the German-occupied territories. Many of the inmates were transported via the infamous death marches. Butte among other transports. 3 trains left Bergen-Belsen in April 1945 bound for their Seenstadt or were liberated. 95. The last recorded train is the one used to transport the women of the Flossenburg March, where for 3 days in March 1945 the remaining survivors were crammed into cattle cars to await further transport. Only 200 of the original 1,000 women survived the entire trip to Bergen-Belsen. 127. Remembrance and commemoration. There are numerous national commemorations of the mass transportation of Jews in the final solution across Europe, as well as some lingering controversies surrounding the history of the railway system utilized by the Nazis. France. The Wagon Monument, Yad Vashem, Jerusalem. The Wagon Monument, Yad Vashem, Jerusalem. In 1992, SNCF commissioned a report on its involvement in World War II. The company opened its archives to an independent historian, Christian Bachelier, whose report was released in French in 2000. 128, 129. It was translated to English in 2010. 130. In 2001, a lawsuit was filed against French government-owned rail company SNCF by Georges Lipiex, a Holocaust survivor, who was transported by SNCF to the Drancy internment camp in 1944. 131. Lipiex was held at the internment camp for several months before the camp was liberated. 132. After Lipiex's death, the lawsuit was pursued by his family, and in 2006 an administrative court in Toulouse ruled in favor of the Lipiex family. SNCF was ordered to pay €61,000 in restitution. SNCF appealed the ruling at an administrative appeals court in Bordeaux, where in March 2007 the original ruling was overturned. 131, 133. According to historian Michael Morris, the court in Bordeaux declared its railway company had acted under the authority of the Vichy government and the German occupation, and as such could not be held independently liable. 128. Note 1. Morris wrote in his 2011 essay that the company has nevertheless taken responsibility for its actions, and it is the company's willingness to open up its archives revealing involvement in the transportation of Holocaust victims that has led to the recent legal and legislative attention. 128. Between 2002 and 2004, the SNCF helped fund an exhibit on the deportation of Jewish children at Wace organized by Nazi Hunter Serge Klassfeld. 128. In 2011, SNCF helped set up a railway station outside of Paris to show foundation for the creation of a memorial to honor Holocaust victims. 129. In December 2014, the company came to a $60 million compensation settlement with French Holocaust survivors living in the United States. 68. Germany. Memorial to the Murdered Jews of Europe, View from the South in 2004/2005. German historians and journalists began publicly demanding that the German passenger train stations commemorative exhibits be set up after railroad companies in France and the Netherlands began commemorations of mass deportations in their own train stations. 140. The Deutsche Bahn AG, DBAG, their state-owned successor of the Deutsche Reichsbahn, replied, "We do not have either the personnel or financial resources for that kind of commemoration." 141. Demonstrations then began at railway stations in Frankfurt am Main and in Cologne, as well as inside the long-distance border crossing range. 142. Because the DBAG had responded by having its security personnel repress the protests, German citizens' initiatives rented a historical steam locomotive and installed their own exhibition in remodeled passenger cars. This train of commemoration made its first journey on the 2007 International Holocaust Remembrance Day of the 27th of January. The Deutsche Bahn AG refused it access to the main stations in Hamburg and Berlin. 143. 144. German Jewish communities protested against the company levying mileage tariffs and hourly fees for the exhibit, which by the 31st of December, 2013, reached approximate $290,000. 145. Parliamentarians of all parties in the German National Parliament called on the DBAG to rethink its behavior. 146. Federal Transport Minister Wolfgang Tufensi proposed an exhibition by artist Jan Philipp Reemsma on the railway's role in the deportation of 11,000 Jewish children to their deaths in Nazi concentration and extermination camps throughout World War II. Because the CEO of the railroad company maintained his refusal, a serious rift occurred between himself and the Minister of Transport. 147. On the 23rd of January, 2008, a compromise was reached, wherein the DBAG established its own stationary exhibit Sondertouren den Tod, chartered trains to death deportation with the German Reichsbahn. 148. As national press journals pointed out, the exhibit contained nearly nothing about the culprits. The post-war careers of those in charge of the railroad remained totally obscure. 149. Since 2009, the Civil Society Association train of commemoration, which, with its donations, financed the exhibition train of commemoration presented at 130 German stations with 445,000 visitors, has been demanding cumulative compensation for the survivors of these deportations by train. The railroad's proprietors, the German Minister of Transport and the German Minister of Finances, rejected this demand. 150. Netherlands. Netherlands Spoorwegen used its 29th of September, 2005 apology for its role in the final solution to launch on equal opportunities and anti-discrimination policy, in part to be monitored by the Dutch Jewish Council. 151. Poland. Memorial to Holocaust trains at the Umschlagplatz of the Warsaw Ghetto. All railway lines leading to death camps built in occupied Poland are ceremonially cut off from the existing railway system in the country, similar to the well-preserved arrival point at Auschwitz known as the Judenramp platform. The commemorative emoluments are traditionally erected at collection points elsewhere. In 1988, a national monument was created at the Umschlagplatz of Warsaw Ghetto. Designed by architect Hannes Meilenberg and sculptor Ladislaw Klamers, it consists of a stone structure symbolizing an open freight car. 152, in Krakow. The memorial to Jews from the Krakow ghetto deported during the Holocaust spreads over